Today, I'm at the University of Twente, and I'm actually very excited because in line with the future of procurement that we are discussing today, I am going to meet Professor Holger Schiele, who's actually thinking about the future of procurement and working on it with a group of students. Let's wait and see what he has to say. Holger.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome at the University of Twente.
Thank you very much. What a nice place.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Let's move.
Yes. I've been told that in this corner office, the future of procurement is actually being defined.
Well, yes, the view of the future of procurement, we started to discuss this around the megatrends. You know, we have conducted the first megatrend study like 10 years ago and another one recently. And that is why we are convinced that the future purchaser will look quite differently than the one now, relying on a set of technologies which support his work and enable this productivity increase. Think about such technologies as RPA, robotic process automation. And that is a very interesting thing where certain steps of a often repetitive standard process, which is not really very productive up till now, are automatized. And the interesting story that comes out of this, some firms have already implemented the first models of such RPA programmed activities. And then it turned out that the processes, they need some kind of a manager. And the other thing what we are seeing is having such technologies, for example, also where we look forward to our negotiation machines. And that is exactly what the technology is possibly also enabling.
But that sounds like a robot.
It sounds like a robot or something like this, a little bit like science fiction.
Yeah.
One vision of the future purchase is then that he has kind of an avatar which has been painted here. Right? The purchaser is programming his or her negotiation tactic, what they want to achieve. And the same is done by the salesperson. And then the machines just match and run this gigantic interaction and achieve a much better result and also much more productive than before. So that would be one of the possibilities.
Okay.
That's what we see in many things. If we have these robotic processes, they do not commit errors. The same is here we can interact much more and negotiate much more, come much closer to an optimum rather than at a certain moment say, okay, let's make a deal, that's what we have done and the rest is not efficient anymore. Right? So we have both better and cheaper processes, which is why we also see a revitalization, return of the emphasis on processes which have been neglected a little bit in the last years, right?
Would you dare to stick a percentage on the savings?
Well, a percentage on the saving, that's always a question.
Yeah.
But, so for example, we have developed a very simple form of such a negotiation avatar. It is not yet fully automatized, so on one side we have the humans, on the other side the machine. So in that sense, this, in that particular case, this multi-stage negotiation leads to higher savings.
Okay.
The question is, how can we generalize this? But that is exactly the task of the firms, to find the situations and the solutions and apply this. If you look at the surveys among the purchasers, about 40–50% of them believe that the colleague robot is going to support them in the future, for example, in negotiations. Of course, it should not be like here on this picture, a humanoid robot. This does not make sense at all. We just make the picture for marketing purposes. De facto, it is a computer program, and that is what we implemented. The university is kind of a living lab. Essentially, it is a training tool. People start as a junior buyer and move towards being a CPO, hopefully in the end. And for example, we have implemented a simple version of a sales avatar. So this is an algorithm which we have developed, which calculates the price based on a couple of criteria, compares it to the other buyers, and interacts then with the players who get a feedback from the machine, defining a kind of a demand curve. And the same thing is doing the salesperson. They have to really define with their company,
the bandwidth.
Exactly, the bandwidth. Technically, we have developed some matrices. So they fill in the matrix like discount rates, time, delivery periods, and things like that, how much it costs extra. And the same is done by the buying part. How much would it be worth for them to get it a day earlier, the good?
Yeah.
And then the machine look for the optimum. So that is the vision.
You mentioned this whole cyber negotiation and the avatar and these type of things. Other than that, what big developments compared to where we are today would you see in technology towards the I4O?
If we look at the purchasing perspective, let's keep the scope a little bit focused. Of course, in logistics, we have a lot of things, production, but we are machines talking to each other and adjusting their production schedule, things like that. But on purchasing, we see three main points. Number one is the demand identification. These are the sensors which are actually measuring depletion. You extend this to factories, to machines, to light, to all this type of goods. The other thing is, of course, in the end, in the sourcing process, so that is the operative procurement process, then in the sourcing process, the negotiation avatars. And then there's an entire layer, a third group, which are supportive tools. Think about risk management. Right? In principle, the vision is that if we only had enough data, which for the moment we still do not have, but if we had them, then we could try to have a learning system to produce early alerts, risk alerts in supply chain. Other things is the contract analysis. This is essentially a text mining system where we would envision the machine making a dossier for the purchaser. This is the offer of the supplier. Please have a look at page 25 and 85. These are clauses which in the past have led to lawsuits, for example. It seems to be a little bit difficult to do this with our European law system, whereas the American or British law system, case-based, is more accessible to that. So here we have a third branch of supporting systems. As a world, we are very lucky, because if we did not have these technological developments of the fourth industrial revolution, we see that the megatrend globalization is stopping, which was helping us to increase productivity, but it is no longer. We see a couple of other trends emerging which are actually decreasing our growth. This is the decrease in birth rate. This is bad for economic growth. And the only thing which is left to increase economic growth, to increase productivity, is technology. If we had not had the fortune of developing these technologies of I4O, cyber physical systems, artificial intelligence, digital twins, etc., we would have a problem.